Hello, I'm Mantastic'c and Fantastic, and today I want to talk about the Illusory Artists event that has just gone live in North America. So, not to paint you a sad picture, but the Artists event is a truly depressing event. It has some nice stuff, but is grossly overpriced at 10 magic stones per roll, and even though you might get something new and event cards, many of them are actually quite lackluster, especially those at the bottom rarity. Like, they just don't have that much usage or value, and I'm still going to narrate and summarize all the new evolutions and upgrades to existing cards, but for the most part, I am personally not spending my stones in here and just simply waiting and hoarding for something better to come along. But without further ado, let's take a look-see at all the new cards and upgrades to the existing ones. So, the first card I want to take a look at is the Sand Artist Rer. Hopefully I'm saying that right, and this is the only card you actually can monster exchange for. It will take 20 trade fodder, and the trade fodder can come from either artist cards or even 7+ star Godfist exclusive. So it's an incredibly expensive trade when you think about it, because you're not guaranteed to get artist cards from this event because they're mixed in with other stuff. And at 20 for one trade, that's a stupendously high price tag for a card that is, it's okay. Like, I would not be upset if I acquired him through rolling, but I would never actually want to monster exchange for them because even though I've rolled an artist before, I don't think I have 20 copies to spare of various cards. I always like to keep at least 2 of any given one. So, upon transformation, they just switch positions with your leader. And this is going to be the hallmark of all the high rarity cards in this event. They leader swap from wherever position they are with whoever was your leader originally. And the pros of this is that, well, you can play on 7x6 boards, but the drawback is their active skill has no other extra effect. It is just simply swap places, no haste, no delay, no shield, nothing. Furthermore, it also means you can never actually utilize these cards as subs because you have to transform them, and when you do, they swap into position unless you want to jump through extra hoops of bringing in another leader swapping card, but by that point, is it really worthwhile? But regardless of all that, once they do transform, they have strong personal damage, especially with a 3x3 box because of 4 10 combos and 2 VDP awakenings. The active skill is a 3-turn cooldown, which is definitely a bit of a drawback because 2 would be a bit easier to system, but at a 3-turn cooldown they get damage cap increased for themselves, and all orbs appears in enhanced for 1 turn, and then changing the full board to fire, light, and hearts. It is nice to have full board changers because even if you had nonsense from beforehand, you at least overwrite it and clear it because the orb unlock guarantees you have this actual board. But like I said, the problem is you have to use them as a leader. So do you like this leader skill? Leader skill has a strong attack multiplier. It does have half damage with the shielding effect and 2.5 times HP. So it does have a respectable amount of bulk, but I just don't feel like it's truly that spectacular or that necessary compared to other options available. So can't use it as sub. It's an okay leader. Okay being the key operative word. Not worth the trade fodder. For their weapon assist, it is quite unique and powerful because you get a fire sub-attribute, you get 3 skill boosts, and you have a single team HP awakening and 2 enhanced fire orbs. So from an awakenings point of view, that's spectacular for at least helping yourself get going when you need to transform. And then on top of the 3 skill boosts, it has 3 turns of haste. In all honesty, if I were to get this card, I would simply utilize them as a weapon assist because 6 effective skill boosts in a given weapon assist is quite spectacular. And 22 turn cooldown is on the longer end for 3 turns of haste, but it's somewhat offset by the fact that you have 3 skill boosts. Now, of course, the fire sub-attribute is going to be a drawback unless you actually can benefit from it, so your mileage may vary. Next is Desie, and Desie is another top rarity card, which means their active skill has the same awkward leader swapping effect, and it's on a 35 turn cooldown. Sure, she does come with 4 skill boosts, but it's a tremendously long journey to reach to 35, and when she does transform, she has wonderful personal damage with 4 10 combo awakenings with the levitation, should be more than enough for any given dungeon. She has a VDP and 3 wood and 3 dark rose, which is kind of unusual to me, mixing those colors. But taking a look at their active skill, it's a 4-turn cooldown, which is definitely on the longer side. It gives you an attack buff, it gives them a damage cap increase, and a 7x6 board for 1 single turn, and then changes the whole board to wood, dark, and heart orbs. So I think of Bartender Toka and Daki. This is probably the most premier wood dark team out there at this point in time, and I would be thinking, well, can I utilize this card and actually make it better the team? Well, with a 4-turn cooldown, it's going to be difficult to actually slot them in unless you need someone who can dedicated to expand your board, because even though DAC keys are both 4-turn cooldowns, they have the damage cap increase for 2 turns, and they also have 2 turns of damage reduction. So with 2 DAC keys, you have 100% uptime on your damage reduction external shield, and one of them will have their damage cap increase. So in theory, with a 4-turn cooldown, you could swap out 1 DAC key for Desie, but the problem is Desie is not as effective as Daki when it comes to just having a system, because you lose the damage reduction. That damage reduction is possibly going to be necessary to survive big hits. So maybe just scrap Dakies altogether and put in a looping shield, but even with a 4-turn cooldown, you don't solve the board changing needs. I think they're just an awkward card overall. And sure, their leader skill is nice in the sense that it has 80% damage reduction, 6 bonus combos when you match a bunch of linked water or wood orbs, but it goes against kind of the 4 matches that you want for Daki teams. So like, it's a good color card, but it's just not going to be better compared to other options currently available. For her weapon assist, double skill boost, double movement time bonus, cloud resist, and a 10 combo are a wonderful spread of awakenings if you don't need any extra bulk. And then the active skill itself does give 4 turns of delay. So in theory, this is another 6 effective skill boost card, assuming you can actually delay the first floor. Now we're going into like the lower rarity cards that are new, and for Olli, I feel like Olli will at least have much longer staying power as a sub compared to the previous cards, because A, you can use them as a sub because their transformation effect is simply 2 turns of haste. Yes, it's extremely long cooldown at 26 turns, and it's only 2 turns of haste, and they only come with 2 skill boosts. So with only 4 effective skill boosts, it's definitely on the lower end, but if you build your team accordingly, you can compensate for this little shortcoming. And when they do transform, they do become a strong cleric option because they have 4 enhanced hard orb awakenings, they have 4 10 combos, so they have respectable damage, they have 2 L's, so they can take the assist recovery latent, they also could deal meaningful amounts of damage if you match those 5 water orbs in that L, and they can clear sticky blinds. Their active skill is that cleric that I alluded to, where it has full bind, awoken bind, and unmatchable on a nice 5-turn cooldown. The extra zest it brings is no skyfalls and replacing the full board. So there are obviously some instances where your board becomes truly terrible. Maybe it's flooded with poison orbs and your active skill that makes your orbs only makes a fixed amount, not a whole board changer. Maybe it can help, maybe it doesn't. It also could technically clear no skyfall debuffs that have been put on you. But point of the matter is, it's a cleric who has potentially modest amount of healing. Their RCV stat is pretty horrible, but with 4 enhanced heart combos, it at least kind of offsets that a bit. Their damage output is respectable. Their health stat is respectable. Like, I feel like it's a card that would be nice to have, but it's not necessarily something I would want to chase overall. For their weapon assist, 2 skill boosts, tape resist, a single enhanced heart orb awakening. Nothing special, so to speak. It's not bad, but it's not good, which means if you're not good or great, you're probably not going to necessarily be utilized. For Glad, you're not going to be glad you rolled them, because Glad makes me a little sad. They have a 32-turn cooldown, and when they transform, it only gives you 2 turns of haste, so it takes a small eternity to actually transform them, so you might think it's going to have a great payoff, but unfortunately the payoff is not so great. They have 4 L's, so sure, they could recover your assists, but that's kind of all they really got going for them beyond like 4 enhanced heart orb awakenings. Maybe in Sun dungeons, which are incredibly rare, they get some respectable stats, but their awakenings, like, it's nothing that special. For the active skill, it's a 4-turn cooldown that gives you an RCV and a movement time buff, which is nice, and a 7x6 board, so you can counteract all of those mechanics. It does give a damage cap increase to your leader and helper for 1 turn, but I feel like RCV and movement time and even 7x6, these are kind of like softer mechanics you need to counter, like damage absorption, a cleric. These are things you need to bring, but to a certain extent, you can most of the time puzzle your way through these movement time debuffs, and unless you're a team that needs to have minimum 6x5 board to function, the board extension is not necessarily going to be that necessary. But even if all these aspects were truly desirable, the fact that it takes such a long time to actually transform them for a relatively small payoff makes it challenging to justify their inclusion overall. For their weapon assist, they have a light sub-attribute, 7 combo, 4 enhanced light orb awakenings. It's, I guess, nice if you need some offensive might for mono light teams, but It's kind of all it really is, beyond the fact that it is a leader swapping active for the owning card itself. So the card that wants to swap cannot transform. For Prim, Prim has gained a new evolution that's wonderfully utility-oriented. They have 6 enhanced Hard Orb Awakenings. They have 2 Ls. They have 4 skill boosts, 2 skill bind resists. Their Super Awakenings can bump their skill boosts up to 6, or their enhanced Hard Orb combos to 8, or have 2 more Ls to bring their total up to 4. So they can be a wonderful utility piece. They do not transform, which is a big deal because then you can inherit something over top of them, and their 3 turn-based cooldown can inherit essentially anything you want over top of it to get yourself going at the beginning. Active skill gives you an attack buff, an RCV, and a movement time buff, so a nice universal blanket of buffing, and creates a single spinner for 1 turn. So in theory, this 3-turn cooldown could be part of your orb generation system because 1.5 times movement time will give you at least the chance to fish out enough orbs for activation, possibly. So maybe they can fill that role. They can put back your assist. They can heal you back up. They do overwrite most debuffs. It's not a bad thing to have by any means, but in all honesty, I like their weapon assist more. And when we get to that weapon assist part, we'll take a little closer look at it. For Atelli, she is probably the only top rarity who seems to actually be remembered as a leader, but for her split evolution, she is also still a strong absorption option. She has potentially 4 skill boosts, she has skill charge, and she has 6 4-attribute awakenings, so she can deal respectably large amounts of damage. And with the skill charge awakening, her 12-turn cooldown is realistically 6 turns when you are matching, but the drawback is when you enter a dungeon, you're not benefiting from the skill charges yet. So in order to utilize their inherit, they probably have to utilize an inherit that has a lower base cooldown in order for it to actually charge up in time. But their active skill on a 6-turn cooldown is 2 turns of absorption cancellation and then 50% damage reduction for 2 turns. This is a wonderful active skill because you need absorption, and 50% damage reduction is significantly higher than the looping shields, which are almost always going to be capped at 35%. So that extra 15% damage reduction may not sound like much, but there are definitely going to be instances where it makes a colossal difference. So in summary, she does meaningful amounts of damage. She can have skill boost. She doesn't transform, so you can utilize an inherit. Active skill is great because it's covering problems you need. She has offensive might. It's a strong card all around, and in theory, I guess she could even be your 7x6 option for her own team if you really wanted to, utilize Atelli in her scaling leader form, which is her original form, which actually received meaningful buffs. On the other hand, Kaishu's split evolution form is incredibly strong for Gokrex, which is the newer 8-star Godfest exclusive. So, Kaishu in this form here has 4 skill boosts naturally. They have 310 combos and the aging barrel, so then their stats become quite significant if the dungeon is at least 5 or ideally 10 plus floors long. They do have natural tape resist, so when your assists get taken away, he does at least provide some value there. But why is he used on Gokrex teams? The reason is because their active skill is useful because it's 1 turn of damage absorption and damage penetration, which allows you to overcome those mechanics on a blisteringly short 2-turn cooldown. And remember, because he doesn't transform, you can inherit anything you want on top of him to help yourself transform more easily. But the main reason why he's utilized on Gokrex teams is because their leader skill is a 7x6 board. So Gokrex functions best on 7x6, and they usually swap El Diablo in as the leader because Gokrex is a pure HP leader and El Diablo is a pure shielding leader, so the mixture of the two makes the team safer against gravity-based attacks. So, point is, valuable active skill that doesn't conflict with Gokrex. In fact, using Kaishu first makes Gokrex's active stronger because they can convert those poison orbs into heart orbs, and the heart to dark doesn't conflict with the other orb generation. So it works for that given team. He does have the potential to be incredibly strong in moon-based dungeons, and it's always better when the moon or sun awakening is included in the super awakenings because then you can actually utilize it only when it's actually relevant. So Kaishu does have a nice weapon assist for sure, but if you do have Gokrex and you do have El Diablo and ideally like Shia LaPouf, can be a spectacularly strong team for Gokrex. So if you are fortunate enough to get Kaishu, this is something to keep in mind. On the other hand, Eliezer is a card I just never found that great overall. They do have 6 skill boosts for VDPs, potentially a 5th one, or 6 or 8 skill boosts, but they do have levitation, so their damage output is okay. They are a sub-attribute only card, which is kind of annoying because there's less damage output potentially. Sure, they can take the triple damage cap latent, and maybe they could deal meaningful amounts of damage, but it's hard to say whether or not it's going to be truly enough. But the active skill is unique. It does give you a damage cap increase to 6 billion for your entire subs, an attack multiplier, an RCV, and a movement time buff. So it's nothing like terrible, but is it improving enough? Is it providing enough value? Like, we have other universal buffers that provide some extra zest. Their extra zest is the sub damage cap increasing, but oftentimes like a spinner or like a 7x6 board tends to be a little bit more valuable by comparison. So like, I think it's nice, but nothing that spectacular. Leader skill wants to match exactly or 9+ linked fire orbs, so maybe you could utilize like, say, like Metal Antares for a system or Shiva Dragon system. They do actually auto heal when matching orbs, so I guess it could be a much cooler like Shiva Dragon leader, but when Shiva Dragon teams are utilized, they have a spot for like usually Jonathan for the piercing, Cammy for the clericking, and absorption of some kind. Elieser's not providing any of those 3 metrics, so sure, they auto heal, but like they're not covering the other mechanics you might need for those swipe-based teams. And then now we come to the cards that receive buffs and upgrades, and for the most part, these buffs and upgrades are truly underwhelming. First off is Elio, and Elio does have a nice spread of resist with blind, tape, and cloud resist. They do a bit of everything. They have some damage output. They are a fast awoken skill bind and bind clearing option and damage penetration on a 3-turn cooldown when they transform, so it's something to keep in mind for your fire swipe teams. I sometimes use Elio on my Shiva Dragon teams, so it's something to keep in mind, but I haven't used them in a prolonged period of time because like most of these middle rarity cards just don't do that much. Weapon assist gives you 2 skill boosts, an L, full jam resist, bind immunity. It's nothing special in this day and age. This is what I'm going to be saying quite often, in all honesty, for most of these cards. Nothing special. When it comes to Ashley, nothing special once again. Sure, their damage output can be strong when you match a 3x3 box, or the 6 rows can help everyone else's damage output, but their active skill just changes the enemy's attribute to wood for a single turn. Like, it's a nice thing to have, but it's not something that we can squeeze in when we're so pressed for space on a given team. So Ashley is like nice, I guess, nicest to have, but not that great. Probably going to utilize her as a weapon assist, but I still haven't utilized her weapon assist in a prolonged period of time. The currently updated form has 2 team RCVs, a 3x3 box, 4 enhanced fire orbs, and a skill boost, so it's not a bad spread of awakens if you need an extra healing zest and more damage when matching 3x3 boxes, but beyond that, it's just like, it's okay. It's not that magical. For Clesia, she is a newer bottom rarity card, or mid rarity card, but she doesn't really make that big of a splash overall. Does have natural cloud, does have natural tape, has 4 5-attribute awakenings when she does transform, so she can deal respectable amounts of damage, but it's only respectable. It's not that great. Remember, a 10 combo is better than is basically the same as a 5-attribute, and usually 4 10 combos is not enough, so not going to be enough in most cases. Active skill gives you 2 times attack for the leader and helper, changes the board to all attributes and hard orbs, gives you a board enhance. I guess it could plug your active skill loop if you have 3-turn cooldowns. It does give you an orb enhances, but I feel like they're just better 3-turn rainbow board changers available compared to Clesia. Weapon assist gives you a 4-attribute 3 seconds of movement time and full blind resist. I feel like this is something that I would like to have as an option for rainbow teams. Not necessarily something I'm going to utilize all the time, but it would be nice to have because some rainbow teams definitely benefit from extra movement time, like Atelli teams, for instance, love extra movement time to get all those 4 matches in position. For Alvanis, farmable card, can't have too much expectations for them. They are a damage penetration on a 5-turn cooldown. Does make the board into fire, heart, and poison. It's kind of annoying having poisons, but it's farmable, can't have too many expectations. And wait, Alvanis in his other form. Like, again, farmable, just like maybe pick it up, but I don't feel like I'm going to have an actual usage for them because like it's making fire and poison orbs, and we don't really want to have poison orbs in most cases. And then for various weapon assists, these are just not important in all honesty. The negative stats like indicate that they were like one of the farmable stuff, so just kind of glossing over them. For Prim, I really don't care about all these buffs because the problem is her leader skill is still 4 times effective health. It's only 75% damage reduction, and in this day and age, you are going to get absolutely slaughtered with that tiny amount of damage reduction. So you can't use her as a leader, you can't use her as a sub because her active skill when you transform like the other top rarities is swapping them from the sub into the leader position. And you may have actually would possibly want to use them as a sub because they have a useful active skill on a blisteringly short 2-turn cooldown. It's a nice orb generator for water and fire orbs, gives her damage cap increase, gives her a personal damage increase, and damage penetration. Like, it would be nice to use them as a sub, but unfortunately, Gung Ho doesn't love her enough, and it's only 75% damage reduction. On the flip side, I think she has a wonderful weapon assist, especially for any team that actually likes to match Ls, because full bind immunity, 2 team HPs, 2 seconds of orb movement time, and 2 Ls. Useful awakenings. Even without the L, it's still nice to have the mind immunity and the movement time with the bulk. So I've put Prim into her weapon assist form, and I think I've kept Prim in this weapon assist form for a prolonged period of time. The active skill has been improved slightly, but it's still 4 turns of 50% shielding. I believe the attack buff is new. I could be wrong, but maybe it's the voiding damage absorption and now. But either way, it's 4 turns of damage absorption and damage penetration, and 4 turns of 50% damage reduction. It's incredibly like high impact when you enter a given dungeon, especially for like some dungeons where like they're quite short and you can kind of carry over the penetration and the absorption across multiple floors because it lasts for 4 turns. Something to keep in the back of your mind. On the other hand, Chloe is, well, she exists. When she transforms, she has a bunch of crosses, and you're going to be kind of cross about that because you don't necessarily want to match crosses. There's not really any team that really needs to match crosses, so like maybe if she does get a team that wants to match crosses, perhaps. But the active skill, kind of like Prim, it doesn't actually make heart orbs, so that does give a bit of a drawback there overall. But if you do need to flood your board of water orbs and you don't really care about her, there's too many ifs. Like, it's not that great of a card in all honesty. Weapon assist is probably where it's going to be in most cases because it's double team HP and blind resist and a cross awakening. I like crosses on weapon assist because you don't need them all the time. You can put them on a given card to clear sticky blinds when necessary, and with the double team HP and the full blind resist, this is actually quite a strong weapon assist overall. So just pretend she doesn't exist in her base form, just make it as a weapon assist, throw it into your assist folder, and then pull it out once in a blue moon. For Ren, when they transform, their active skill didn't change, and that's just unfortunate because, sure, it's an 8-turn cooldown with 2 turns of damage reduction, but with the skill charge awakening, it's really a 4-turn cooldown. So 2 Rens can kind of do what 2 Dakis do for the Daki and Bartender Toka team, where they do provide 100% uptime on their damage reduction, and they do provide that rainbow board changers. So in theory, for your rainbow-based teams, you could have 2 Rens for the damage reduction, but unlike Daki, the damage reduction is 50%, so that's actually significant. A looping 50% shield is quite meaningful overall. But remember, it's truly a 4-turn cooldown. So if you have 2 Rens and another card with a 2-turn cooldown, you actually have 100% uptime on your shield, 100% uptime on your orb generation needs. So it's possible it could be utilized for that given usage, but I don't know. Like, I'm not quite sure if rainbow teams can truly squeeze that in. Maybe they can, maybe they don't. It all depends on the type of leaders you're using and how long their cooldown is, because quite a few of like the better rainbow teams that I feel, they oftentimes will have 3-turn cooldowns, like say like Toy Dragon Trio, like they're 3-turn cooldowns, so you can't utilize Toy Dragons with Ren and get the loop. Maybe Akaza works, but Akaza's probably going to be your leader who needs Devil, so you need to use Devil typing weapon assist. Like, there's extra hoops you need to jump through to make Ren work, but 50% looping shield is actually quite significant. Maybe, I don't know. Like, I think it's going to be difficult to squeeze it in. For their weapon assist, it's got skill boost, team HP, jammer resist, cross, and a whole second of orb movement time. Bit of everything, but completely forgettable in all honesty. Prim's farmable weapon, it's just not that spectacular. Farmable weapons are, like, they exist, and I just don't really utilize them in all honesty. Alrighty, Atelli is a much more interesting card by comparison. So, original Atelli feels like she's the only high rarity card who actually receives meaningful buffs to actually keep her relevant as a leader, because like I mentioned, for these top rarity cards, you can't utilize them as subs because they swap themselves into position. So when Atelli is pushed into her leadership position, her active skill is a 3-turn cooldown that gives her personal damage and a huge damage cap increase to 9.9 billion, and then damage penetration for a single turn, along with creating exactly 4 of every element and heart orbs. And the 4 creation is important because you want to utilize their leader skill, which matches exactly sets of 4 to have a scaling multiplier. And Atelli also has 80% damage reduction through her leader skill, so that's 5 times effective health, vastly superior to the 4 times effective health that Prim and Kaishu suffer from. So she can actually be utilized as a strong leader. She has auto follow attack. She has bonus combos through her leader skill. She is quite strong beyond the fact that you have to actually be able to match exactly sets of 4 on a 7x6 board every single time. Takes effort, but at the same time, the reward can be there. Double Atelli works quite well. For her weapon assist, they are also strong if you don't find any usage for her. So, has full binding immunity, 5 attribute awakening, 6 OEs in total. It's a cleric active there. Other weapon assist is another 5 attribute. Like, I feel like, in all honesty, like, their weapon assists are okay. But if you need a leader, Atelli in her original form is great. Or if you need a strong absorption sub, her split evolution form will be quite a useful option. Rick Yuto is just like, you exist. I never used them once, and I'm never going to use them still, probably. Weapon assist is team HP, 3x3 box, balance killer. Like, it's okay. Like, it's very forgettable, so to speak. Reggie has 4 skill boosts before they transform, but the problem is there's no actual effect upon transforming, so that's unfortunate. When they do transform, it's only 410 combos. Sure, they have 2 L's and 2 crosses, but it's only 410 combos. I guess the T you can do something with, but it's not going to be enough in most cases, and upon transforming, no haste, no delay, no shield. Active skill when they do transform just gives them attack buffing and damage cap increasing. It's just not... It doesn't fit at this point in time. Weapon assist, it has nice weapon assist, I think, for Toka Daki teams because the enhanced wood and dart combos are great for those teams. 7 combo means the Oni card hits harder, a movement time, and a team HP plus bind immunity. I feel like, in all honesty, Reggie will be thrown into a weapon assist and slapped onto Toka Daki teams potentially. Atelli's farmable weapon is just not really that meaningful. I don't even know who's farmable. I'm just going to skip all these farmable things. Hands can actually deal strong personal damage when you match exactly 4 light orbs, because 410 combos, 6 TPAs, and a machine killer for good measure can deal meaningful amounts of damage. But the biggest problem is that when he transforms, it's only 1 turn of haste and not many skill boosts. And that's the biggest drawback when a transforming card isn't pulling their weight when they do transform. So Hands definitely falls into that category. It is pretty useful when it does transform, especially against machine-type spawns. He can also function as a single turn of attribute absorption and damage penetration, along with a small amount of orb generation and orb enhancement. So I think it is potentially usable on some light TPA teams, but his transformation aspect is definitely a bit of a hindrance. For his weapon assist, they have bind immunity, they have team HP, they have team RCB, they have 2 skill boosts. It's like useful to have, because there are definitely going to be instances where you need to give a card bind immunity, and then giving bind immunity with skill boosts, so it helps you transform, a bit of bulk, a bit of recovery. It's not a bad thing to have overall. Like, I do sometimes use my hands brushes every now and then the active skill is at least useful because it's still 3 turns of damage absorption and attribute absorption and 50% damage reduction for 3 turns, but it's long enough to not accidentally overcharge. There are instances where I put it on my absorption card because if it does overcharge, it's at least still an absorption solution. So Hands is like slightly better than okay. Pastel, I used her once as a weapon assist for a ranking dungeon, and I've never used her since. I'm probably never going to use her again, but I guess when it comes to ranking dungeons, the useful amount of utility it brings, like I said, it's the only time I actually used them was for a random ranking dungeon some months ago. Sergo, I never used him. He does have 5-10 combos and aging and light and dark tacos, so like maybe you can make some arguments for a damage stick for those base teams, but active skill is a painful 4-turn cooldown, but it's not utilized for the orb generation mostly. I'd say it's mostly for the 1 turn of damage and attribute absorption cancellation. So, like, you might be able to find a usage for him, but I don't feel like he's going to replace other absorption solutions unless you need someone who just deals large amounts of damage that can increase their damage cap once every 4 turns. Maybe. Weapon assist is 4 TPAs, which is truly outrageous, and I don't think there's any weapon assist that actually brings 4 TPAs, so just that alone makes it unique. If I had this card, I might use it once in a while, but like, I don't know, like, it's a lot of TPAs though. Alcyon is another farmable card, 4-10 combos, some jammer surges, I don't know, it's just, not that great. Hands, farmable brush. I don't think it's going to be utilized much. Pastel's farmable thing. Kaishu in his regular OG form. Like I said, you can't use him as a leader because only 75% damage reduction is going to get you slaughtered in every given dungeon nowadays. It'd be great if I could use him as a sub because I like these awakenings. I like this active skill. I don't like him as a leader. So unless, like I said, I jump through many hoops of like, say, like Fasca or Shyla Poof to like swap people back in, and change the fact that I swapped in Kaishu, maybe, but again, I'm jumping through so many hoops just to use a card who is strong, but is it worth that much effort? On the other hand, Weapon Assist gives you full bind immunity, 2 team HP, 2 TPAs, and 2 seconds of orb movement time. So it's a nice spread of awakenings, especially for TPA-based teams. For Melty, they were utilized at some point long ago as a looping attack buff, who did damage, and she still can deal meaningful damage with 6 4 attribute awakenings and double cross and god killer, but looping attack buffs, they were good many years ago when Artist first came out, not so great nowadays. Weapon assist, bind immunity with double skill boost and a cross. I used it once in a blue moon when I needed this combination of awakenings. It's just going to be sitting there until I need that combination again. This Toon Skull individual has large amounts of damage with 3x3 boxes, especially in moon-based dungeons. They also give Blind, Jammer, and Cloud Resist once they have transformed, but their active skill is a 3-turn cooldown that cuts your health to 1, which is obviously risky. It only changes water to dark, so not enough to even guarantee 9 orbs for a 3x3 box, which is unfortunate, but it does at least give you attribute and damage absorption cancellation for 1 turn. This is a transforming card that doesn't have that big of an impact, I believe, when they transform. So I feel like it's going to be challenging to squeeze them in sometimes. But I don't know, like they do damage, but they don't make enough orbs. It's like you have to jump through, again, a few hoops to make them actually deal damage. Otherwise, they're just some resist with absorption, and we can find better options for that, I feel. Weapon Assist is negative skill boost, but dark sub attribute, 2 attack while below 50%, team HP, and 3 dark rows. If you're a dark based team that likes to be low health, sure, it could be good. It is unique because it is quite a large amount of offensive might for dark based teams. I'd probably just make this weapon and just sit on it, and then once in a while I might find a usage for it. Kaishu's farmable weapon, Melty's farmable weapon, Elizer's original form, 16 turns to transform with 1 turn of 100% damage reduction. So each Eliezer gives you an extra effective skill boost, so to speak, which can be nice. When they do transform, they've got tape, they got cloud, they have 4-10 combos and levitation. Their leader skill, I think, is interesting because every combo you make does increase their scaling attack multiplier. They do have 80% damage reduction through their leader skill. So, like, it is bulky. It does have a scaling leader skill. It does auto follow attack. It does have bonus combos, but I'm not quite sure how we're going to utilize it. I've like seen the leader teams once in a blue moon when they first came out, especially when they have subs like, say, Original Toka, because Original Toka would spawn a perfect 10 combo board every time with 2 light combos involved. So 2 Tokas on the leader teams would, in theory, always trigger their leader skill requirements, and it would make it pretty spectacular. So I've always thought about maybe trying to utilize it, but I'm not quite sure how well it will pan out. I don't have an Eliezer. I don't think I'm going to free roll one either. Active skill-wise is no Skyfalls, replaces the board, increases their damage cap to 9.9 billion, and then 2 times orb movement time for 5 seconds. So a 3-turn cooldown means you can have 100%, more than 100% uptime on their movement time buff, but it's not solving any mechanics, so to speak, beyond a movement time buff. So on the fence about truly like how valuable it's going to be beyond the fact that they have one attribute that can deal 9.9 billion. We have other cards that can do about that much damage anyways because they have multiple attributes. And then finally for their weapon assist, they have -2 skill boost, but they give Jammer, Poison, Cloud, and Tape Resist. Harm your skill boost for basically all the resists. Not a bad trade by any means, but it's not necessarily something you're going to use all the time, but you can resist basically everything. And then with that being said, that is all the new evolutions and upgrades to artist cards. I think most cards did receive at least some buff or upgrade, but in all honesty, the most common thing I said was underwhelming, or not so special, or it's okay, and that's a pretty good summary for this event. There are obviously going to be some truly useful cards in here, but at the same time, it's better to save, better to hoard, better to wait patiently. Maybe you'll get lucky with a free roll. But with that being said, let me know what you, lovely ladies and gentlemen, think about all the artist events in the comment section down below. Do you think it's actually an event worth rolling in, or are you just going to utilize the buffs to existing cards from what you actually have? Because you probably rolled this in the past when it was much stronger by comparison. Regardless of all that, hopefully all of you have a truly fantastic day. I wish best luck in your own pad adventures, and happy puzzling.